Hello and welcome back to the Watchman News Network. Today, Stan Johnson is going to report on the fall of the dollar. He's going to talk about prophecies that he has, as well as some news that you won't hear in the mainstream media. Then we're going to hear from Tucker Carlson, who just did a great report yesterday, March 18th, on this same subject. So we're going to start now with Stan Johnson of the Prophecy Club talking about the fall of the dollar.
Welcome to the Prophecy Club. Our topic today is the dollar will die suddenly. At least that's what the prophecies say. The dollar will die, not just slowly, like we had probably all hoped. If it's going to die, hopefully it dies slowly. But what it's really saying is that it's not only going to die suddenly and quickly, but sad to say, it may be starting this month, as in March, as in 2022. Now, I do not know for certain. God has not told me, but I'm a watchman. Ezekiel 33:6 says that watchman, if he sees the sword come, is to blow the trumpet. I'm blowing the trumpet. I'm doing my job. I do not have to guarantee that it's coming to pass. I am simply required to blow the trumpet and to watch and to warn, and that's what I'm doing. So I see a problem. I see that the dollar could, not in March, at least here real soon, is about to die. I think that what the Coverstone Dreams are basically saying is that in March, we're about to see an internal revolution in America, massive arrests, the death of the dollar, the moving into the new quantum financial system, which for a brief period of time, probably 6 months, is going to be good, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the mark of the beast system. So that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. So let's get on with it. Comes to us from HalTurnerRadioShow.com. Headline, boom. Russia returns to the gold standard for its currency. Hold it, stop everything. What is that saying? It's saying that the old SWIFT system that we've been on, well, at least Moloch and Baal worshippers have been controlling it for some 300 years. SWIFT hadn't been around that long, but the old SWIFT system, the SWIFT system that the Moloch and Baal worshippers have been controlling for 300 years, what that just said is it's dead. It's gone. Now, what does that mean? It means that the dollar and all of the other coins and all the other paper currencies of the world are all about to die. Why? Because they're going away from coins. They're going to digital. They're going to digital currency. We're going to talk about that at the end of the program. Don't miss it. Boom. Russia returns to the gold standard for its currency. You know how big that is? I mean, what was it? 1973 when Nixon took us off the gold standard? So since then, there has been no gold standard. All of a sudden, do you think that that's an accident? When he's doing the police action, I'm not going to call it an invasion. I don't think it's an invasion. I think that what Putin is doing is put down the pedophiles. I think he is freeing the sex slaves, the little boys and little girls that are part of the underground child sex trafficking that is going on in Ukraine, i.e. the Moloch and Baal worshippers, and has probably been going on for probably more than years, probably centuries. Now, let's go on. So he says Russia returns to gold standard. Government to remove the VAT tax on bullion. He says in one fell swoop, Russia just made the Russian ruble the single most stable currency in the entire world. Yes, that's true. But they're all about to go the same way. All of the coins, all of the paper are going bye-bye, according to finalwakeupcall.info, and I'm going to read from it here in just a second. It's all going because we're going to a new digital currency. Again, so that no man might buy or sell save he had the mark of the name of the beast or the number of his name. Let's go on. Moreover, they just the U.S. dollar and the euro so badly, neither currency is likely to survive. They're not going to survive. They're all going to a gold currency or a digital currency that is gold backed. So says finalwakeupcall.info. Nobody around the world will favor a U.S. dollar or any other currency backed by nothing from a nation $30 trillion in debt versus a gold-backed ruble. When Muammar Gaddafi in Libya planned on a gold-backed currency for all of Africa, the West went into Libya and overthrew him. When Saddam Hussein in Iraq announced that he would start selling oil in currencies other than the U.S. dollar, 2 months later, Iraq War II, and they hung him. Now, that's true. Okay, so the U.S. really is in control of the world. The U.S. really does rule the world, at least right now. And so they're doing this to protect the dollar. And yes, it's more than just U.S. It's a world reserve currency. But all of that is going away. See, this Russia's police action into Ukraine, not an accident. And now what we're about to see is the same thing. Russia attacking, that's not the right word, overcoming Ukraine and cleaning it up is what's about to happen in America, where the good guys are about to overcome the bad guys and clean up America. It's called an internal revolution, just like Dmitry was told in 1984. The U.S. dollar being the sole reserve currency of this planet is why wars get waged. Yes, that's true in the past, but in the future, not so. And now Russia has completely and totally smashed it. So I'm going to skip down. Our currency has just been utterly smashed by Russia's decision to back the ruble with gold. But see, he didn't understand what you and I understand. We're going to a total digital currency system. Everybody will have a cell phone, and that's the new one. They already made 7 billion of them. We've talked about this. We'll have a new cell phone. That cell phone will be hot. This is part of what I'm going to talk about when I talk April 2nd in Columbia, Missouri. You should go to prophecyclub.com and get your spot reserved. But this cell phone will always be on. You cannot pick it up. You cannot touch it. You can't turn off it taking your fingerprint, taking your voice print, taking your face print. It's always knowing who is touching it. 100% biometric accuracy, 100%. Then this cell phone will link to the new Starlink satellites that are almost ready to go online. And that's the new digital currency system that they're bringing online. I'm telling you the truth. Okay, let's go on. Now, let's go to some prophecies. I'm not going to read all of it. We'd be here all day long. I'm just going to read part of it. So July 10th, 2012, Shane Warren came in and made a DVD for Prophecy Club. You can order it. You can watch it instantly at watchprophecyclub.com, where he said he saw that the dollar bill was blowing in the wind, worthless as leaves. Associated with that was a great earthquake. Now, here's the point. Associated with that, he saw that the dollar crashed. Now, then he saw an internal revolution. But let's tie this together. He said the scene changed. I was taken to a Middle East room, and I saw India, Syria, Indonesia, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Egypt, Russia, and China all trying to devalue the dollar. And how were they doing this? By selling oil in currencies other than the dollar. Well, why is that significant? I'm going to show you. The American dollar has no stability. All we have to do is stop selling oil in dollars and trade oil in gold, and the dollar will collapse. Skipping on. August 24th, 2021, HowTurnRadioShow.com, he got it right again. Saudi Arabia Russian officials Tuesday announced the signing of a military cooperation pact between the two countries. What did that do? That just killed the dollar. Well, why hasn't it already died? I think it's all part of a plan. And in this particular case, the bad guys are not in control of the plan. I believe that's the good guys, the alliance or the white hats, what do you want to call them? The good guys are trying to sweep the room clean of all the filth. That's what's going on right now. It's a battle like we have probably never had, maybe not since the days of Gideon and Elijah. So he says, in the 1970s, the petrodollar was created. The U.S. made an agreement that they would protect Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis agreed to standardize the sale of oil based upon U.S. dollar, meaning if you want to buy oil on the planet, you have to buy it in dollars. So if you had yen, or if you had marks, you had to buy dollars and then trade, and then you bought your crude oil. That meant that all of these countries had to have a large supply of these dollars on hand. Well, that made the dollar very, very strong. It made it the reserve currency of the world. And even to this day, you can go around the world. They might not take yen, they might not take marks, but you pull out a dollar bill and just about everybody around the globe is happy to take a dollar bill because it's the reserve currency. But when they start selling dollars, when they start selling oil in something other than dollars, it crashes the dollar. What this is saying is as of October 24th, 2021, the dollar is now heading to death. Now, why hasn't it happened? I think it's all part of the plan. The part of the plan that started with Russia going in and cleaning up Ukraine, and then probably in March, that's my guess. No, God has not told me specifically. I'm not saying thus saith the Lord. I'm entitled to my own guess. Okay, I'm a watchman. I can guess. That's my job, is to warn people when I see a problem. I see a problem. And that problem could very well be in March 2022, we could see an internal revolution. That's a guess, but it's a good guess. Now let's go on. So he says, in order for the countries to buy oil, they have to exchange the currency of U.S. dollars, then pay for that oil in U.S. dollars. This system caused literally every country in the world to hold U.S. dollars in their currency reserves. Since Russia will protect the Saudis now, the Saudis no longer need to sell their oil in U.S. dollars. Means it is now set for a fall. Remember, Coverstone saw in that dream, he said he saw the dollar on fire and it was going down, and he heard the words in the background, the sound, taps in the background, dun, da, dun, dun, da, dun, okay? Heard that, and the dollar was burning and it was going down. So there's a lot of prophecy saying the dollar's about to die. This is only one of them. Let's go on. Then David Phillips, 7/24/2021, he said, I dreamed we were eating at a restaurant with friends. The question it's going to answer is, how long does it take the dollar to die? Is this a process over a few years, a few months, a few days, or maybe a few hours? We were eating in a restaurant with friends. Everyone was having a good time. The waitress said they accidentally gave you the wrong menu, saying that some food should have been more expensive, but it was their mistake, so they'd honor the current prices. So we were getting better prices. They also said they were low on some food items. What is happening right now? Are we not seeing shipping problems? Yes, we are. Means this is ready to take place right now. We were annoyed by having to pick other items instead. The staff was working hard to please and keep the business running. We began to watch the movie showing outside. Halfway through, it was abruptly turned off. Listen to that. Abruptly turned off. Everything went dark. The restaurant announced that they were closing right now, this instant, immediately. And everyone had to get up and walk out. In other words, they basically said, stand up, walk out. Right now, we're closing it for how long? How long? 6 months. What did Coverstone say? He said he saw gray clouds in March. Then for 6 months, okay, it was fine. But then in September, 6 months later, is when he saw dark clouds. And again, he saw airplanes, military airplanes overhead. My guess is that's the suitcase nukes. I think it's interesting that they both say 6 months. And that's one of the reasons I think that we're probably talking about after the internal revolution, the massive arrests, the quantum financial system coming in, kicking out of the SWIFT system, we probably have 6 months before the suitcase nukes hit. And at that point, it's going to be really tough. As Dimitri said to Michael, storm's coming, my boy, and it's going to be a bad one. That bad storm is probably coming. And that's not a thus saith the Lord, okay? I'm simply warning you best I can. So if it doesn't come to pass, I don't want to hear this false prophet garbage, okay? I'm not saying God told me. I'm saying as a watchman, I see a problem. I'm doing my job, just like when you tell others you're doing your job, okay? That's what a watchman does. And if you're watching this program right now, you are a watchman. If you've made it this far, you are a watchman. Let's go on. Get up right now. Everyone walk out saying the restaurant would be closed for 6 months. Everyone panicked. They were all in shock. We all stood at our feet, gathered our loved ones, and left. So what's the point? What's the point? This guy, David Phillips, has had several dreams, several of them for me personally, and he's been right on. What's the point? It's saying in a time when there are some food shortages, there's going to come a time when all of a sudden the dollar shuts down. Things get extremely expensive. Other people said it gets 6 times more expensive, but it specifically says it goes on for 6 months. Boom. If we just, If we can matter of fact, let me say something else. Back in the days of Y2K coming on, 1999, there was not one dream, one vision. Nobody had any prophetic words that Y2K was going to be a problem. Not a one thing. It was all the news saying this. And of course, us watchmen, we were listening to the news just like everybody else. And so we saw a problem, so we warned people. But God did not tell us it's a problem. Right now, it's the other way around. Today, we are getting lots of dreams and visions. What do I have? 14 different dreams and visions talking about food shortage. Also about 12 to 14. I think the exact count is like 14 on Suitcase Nukes now. I mean, God is screaming at us if we can just recognize his voice. Let's go on. Now let's go to Jason Meeks, 7/30/2021. So the dream started out, and I pulled up to an ATM, got some cash. I got $20 out, but before I pulled off, I realized, I didn't get enough. Put my card back in, all of a sudden the fee, instead of $1 or $2, had jumped to $42. In other words, the dollar dies just that quick. It means that one time it's fine. The next instant, it's not fine. So if we're trying to understand just how fast the dollar is going to die, fast. Okay, so what do we do about it? Let me just take a second. So somebody emailed me and said, Stan, what do you think I ought to do? And so here's my suggestion. I'm not telling you to do anything. If my mom were to call and say, son, she's gone to be with the Lord now, but she would say, what do you think I ought to do? I'd say, well, Mom, I think everybody ought to have at the very minimum a handful of gold and silver, because you need silver because you may have to buy a tank of gas. And, probably a gas station is not willing to take a loaf of bread for a tank of gas. So, second thing, I think that we need to have food. There's an old saying that says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if I had a choice, whether I wanted to be the guy standing in line with coins in my pocket, trying to buy bread, or if I wanted to be the guy on the other side of the table with the bread to sell, I'd prefer to be the one with the guy with the bread. But the answer is we really need to have both of them. So he says, we drove back home. We stopped by a major bank. The television screens were showing massive arrests. Did you catch that? So what it's saying is that the dollar dies when there's massive arrests. Look at it. The dollar dies. Here it is. Okay, so one time he puts his card in, he gets the money. Next time, it's now $42 to get the money. Okay, so the dollar died instantly, and then the next thing he sees in the dream is massive arrests. What's about to take place? In my opinion, probably March, as in this month, we're probably going to see an internal revelation. It's all part of cleaning the land. It's a good thing. The television screens were showing massive arrests. The alert went out on my cell phone that DJT was assuming control as the new president. What's that? That's an internal revolution started by the communists. Some of the people will start fighting against the government. The government will be busy with internal problems. Then from the oceans, Russia, Cuba, Nicaragua, Central America, Mexico, and 2 of the countries will attack. But I don't think that attack is imminent. I think that's down the road, at least 3, 4, 5, probably in the ballpark of 6, and maybe even close to 7 years down the road before that. Now, that's a guess. But what's it saying? Look at what it's saying. It's saying the dollar dies, and when it dies, it's associated with arrests and DJT back in control. That's an internal revolution. What are we thinking? We're thinking, okay, so Russia did a house cleaning on Ukraine. Now America is about to do a house cleaning on America. That's what it's really all about. Listen, internal revolution about to start. You better listen. I'm telling you, I've been doing it a long time. I've never seen it like this. Matter of fact, I'm trying to buy more wheat for Joseph's Kitchen. The wheat market is in a panic. They won't even answer the phone where we buy wheat. They won't even I've emailed, I've called. several times that they won't even answer the phone. I've tried several numbers. I've tried several different extensions. So's my other buddy here. The wheat market is in a panic. Why? Because Ukraine, look, if you look at the Ukrainian flag, it's yellow on bottom and the top half is blue. What does that stand for? I thought it was very interesting. The yellow stands for wheat. The top stands for sky, the blue sky. So that's why their flag is yellow and blue, because it stands for wheat. Okay, so Ukraine is the wheat capital of Europe. Well, guess what? They're in a big war. So that's the reason right now wheat is in a panic. It's all, look, this food thing, all these warnings I've been giving you for years, you've been listening for years. You better sit up and pay attention. You better do something. I'm telling you right now, here's what I think you ought to do. If you don't have any gold and silver and you can, go to cornerstoneassetmetals.com. If you don't have enough food, the best place to get it is josephskitchen.com. josephskitchen.com. Go there. All right, let's go on. I expected people would be rioting and looting, but people were happy, celebrating in the streets, almost like VJ Day in World War II. In the dream, a man came to me and started crying, saying how all of his evil bosses had been arrested and rounded up, telling me he was now in charge of the bank. He was a Christian and had been praying for years for this to happen. As people took to the streets in victory and celebration, we joined in. We jumped on the back of the fire truck to catch a ride to the parade because the streets were full of you, were so full you could not walk. Everything was amazing. Then I heard a huge explosion. Now, my guess is that this is a guess. I do not know for sure. God's not told me. But my guess is the explosion, the suitcase nukes, don't take place for 6 months. So while in the dream it was happening immediately, I think they're 6 months later. That's my guess. Don't be surprised if the suitcase nukes do hit in March. I pray they don't. I don't believe they will. I think we're probably talking about September for that. But nevertheless, let's go through it. So I heard a huge explosion. A suitcase nuke had been detonated within the city. I didn't see the explosion, but I heard the shock waves. We jumped off the truck, ran into a restaurant, and jumped behind a bar for protection from the blast. But we were far enough away, there was no mass effect. Now, the point is here, if you don't want your car to not even open and it won't start, if you want your refrigerators and your computers and things like in your house to still work, then we're going to send you to EMPShield.com. EMPShield.com. Promo code there is prophecy. Get you a $50 discount, and you also help your prophecy club.
Now, we all certainly hope that some of those prophecies do not come to pass. Unfortunately, the signs are all around us. Stan goes on to talk about the QFS, the quantum financial system that's being put in place now. If you want to see that, go to prophecyclub.com. He got an extensive report on that. Next, we're going to hear from Tucker Carlson, who filed this report.
Welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight, there are a lot of things going on around the world at the moment, but we thought we would begin tonight with a report from your own country, just to give you something a little different from what you've been watching every moment of every day for the past 3 weeks. On your screen are pictures from Brooklyn, New York. These are people waiting in line at a food bank. The queue stretches for blocks. It's what we used to call a bread line. Most of these people are not homeless or not addicted to drugs. Some of them have jobs. They just can't afford enough food. Very few living Americans have ever seen anything like this. It's been nearly 100 years since the United States experienced widespread food shortages. That's long enough that most of us have forgotten what it means. And here's what it means. If you want to make a society volatile, not just angry and divided, which is where we are now, but revolutionary and explosive, then you threaten the food supply. More governments have fallen to rising food prices than to any other cause by far. Hungry people are dangerous. The Biden administration doesn't seem to notice this is happening or acknowledge it. Like all neoliberals, they treat unchanging truths about anything as heresy. They censor them and shout them down. They live in an entirely ideological world that they created. They believe reality conforms to their theories, not the other way around. And why wouldn't they think that? If you can change your sex just by wishing it so, you can probably eliminate inflation simply by pretending it doesn't exist. When you're God, there are no limits. The problem is, they're not God. They're not even very capable economists. More than a decade of reckless fiscal policies have devalued the U.S. dollar to the point that middle-class people can barely survive in the United States. Now, the suffering of regular Americans doesn't have the thrilling imminence of, say, war footage from Ukraine, but it's real and it matters. And here's what it looks like in number terms. This year, according to a new estimate, rising inflation will cost the average American family $3,500 in extra post-tax income. Now, that might be bearable if you make $250 grand a year, though you would notice it. But if you make $35,000 a year, that's a disaster. You will radically change the way you live. Your standard of living will plummet. And that's exactly what millions of Americans are facing right now. It's not a talking point, it's real. Americans for Tax Reform found that between November of 2020 and November of 2021, quote, the bottom 20% of earners spent $309 more on food, $761 more on energy, $476 more on shelter, $390 more on other commodities, and $224 more on other services. And those are the numbers from November. They've risen dramatically since then, and they're continuing to rise. Nationally, meat, poultry, fish, eggs up 13%. In San Francisco, a dozen eggs is almost $5. Orange juice in Miami is over $4. So is a chicken breast in Boston. A pound of ground beef hamburger in LA, $6.34. A pound of bacon in New York City, $7.28. In Chicago last year, green grapes cost $2.50 a pound. Now they're $4. The price of chicken wings in the Catskills went from $8 to $20. Order something else. If you tried to drink a pint of Guinness in California yesterday to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, it cost you $8.55 for a pint of beer. Prices of everything are rising far faster than wages are, a lot faster. And that means that in very real terms, the most real, people are becoming poorer. And not just people who buy things, consumers, but also people who sell them, retailers. This is a disaster for small business. Watch.
For a cold, hard lesson on inflation, step into the refrigerator where Karina Gudino-Wallink stores the food supplies she just bought for her pop-up food stand business in Phoenix, Arizona.
So usually it would be, the boneless would be about $1 a pound. Right now it's $1.84 a pound. This cheese used to be $9. Right now it's like $14.56.
And that makes it hard for someone like you to run your business.
Correct. It makes it unbelievably difficult for us to predict any pricing. I can't even say I'm going to charge you a certain price right now because in 3 days it's probably bound to change, you know, and it's never for the better.
Did you catch that at the end? Prices changing every 3 days. It's like Weimar or Zimbabwe. That is not the picture of a stable economy. And it's not just food that's moving fast. In the city of Baltimore, the cost of electricity has risen 18% in a single year. That does not happen with utilities, but it just did. In Philadelphia, the average utility bill rose from $477 a month to $651 a month. According to the National Association of Home Builders, building material prices increased almost 21% year over year. Overall, lumber prices alone have added almost $19,000 to the price of a home in the past 6 months. That's one of the reasons housing prices are so high. And then, of course, there's gasoline. In Los Angeles, it now costs about $180 to fill a Chevy Suburban. One tank of gas, $180. Nationally, gas is up nearly 40%. And here's what that looks like.
These prices are eye-popping here at the Chevron at $7.29 a gallon. For a small car with a 12-gallon tank, it would cost you $87 to fill it all the way up. Of course, we know this is the top end of the spectrum here in California. It's the most expensive state. The average price for a gallon here is $5.67. But we all know that nationally, these prices are through the roof. The average cost nationwide now is $4.33 a gallon. That's up 63 cents in just a week's time. And in fact, right now, the average cost is climbed above $4 a gallon in a staggering 38 states.
Rising gas prices makes people desperate. You wouldn't know that from watching television because most of the people who bring you the news don't know what the price of gas is, and a lot of them don't care because they don't drive themselves. But the rest of the country cares very deeply what the price of gas is. And in some places, the problem is so bad, gas prices are so expensive, that thieves have taken to drilling holes in gas tanks to steal it.
With the national average at $4.33 a gallon, a troubling new trend is on the rise: gas theft. Crimes of opportunity now happening across the country.
Criminals are targeting unattended vehicles for gas, but they're not going in through here. Instead, they're drilling holes from underneath your car and draining your tank.
And once the tank is drilled, it can't be fixed. Getting a new one could cost drivers more than $1,000.
Contrary to what you may have learned from Sandy Cortez's TikTok feed, the internal combustion engine is not a sin. It's not the basis of a moral crisis. It is a miracle upon which all civilization rests. Your Amazon package arrives because of gasoline. So does your Uber Eats. You can fly to see your relatives across the country because of gasoline. So when the price of gasoline rises, everyone is affected, no matter who they voted for and no matter whether they notice it directly or not. Here's how people in the state of Texas are reacting to the rising gas prices.
Gas has reached an all-time record high, and here in Dallas, Texas, it's $4.19 a gallon. Let's go talk to Texans and see what they think about these prices.
They're high, real high. It's absurd. It's ridiculous. You're spending more money to make money, so it's hard.
But it's outrageous, you know.
It's kind of outrageous, not gonna lie to you.
They've been high for a long time, now they too high.
Will the capital of Ukraine fall to the Russians? We certainly hope not. Americans care about that. How high will gas get? Americans care about that even more. They care deeply because it affects their lives so dramatically. And yet the coverage of this is not proportionate. You almost never hear anybody asked, what do you think of the price of gas? But if you leave the TV studios of New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, you will find people really do care. Every product in this country, with some exceptions, but not that many, is delivered thanks to gasoline. And that means with rising gas prices, all products become more expensive. The cheapest washing machine you can buy at, say, Best Buy in South Carolina right now, $450. Furniture and bedding across the country is 17% more expensive than it was a year ago. 12 months ago, a 28 cubic foot Samsung stainless steel fridge was selling for $1,700 at Home Depot. It's now $2,000, and so on, for everything, and particularly for vehicles. The average price of a used car is up more than 30% nationally. It's up 35% in Massachusetts and Tennessee. It's up 38% in Florida and Maryland. It's up 40% or more in Louisiana, New York, Montana, and North Dakota. That means the average cost of a used car in the state of Montana is now more than $42,000 for a used car, some with high mileage. By comparison, last March, the average used Toyota sold for $20,000. The average used Toyota now goes for $28,000. These are real numbers with real effects. To restate, the standard of living of Americans who for almost 100 years have enjoyed the world's highest standard of living in any big country is plummeting. So what's the administration doing to fix this? What are they doing to help? Well, of course, that depends upon whether or not you're Ukrainian. If you are, they can help you. If you're not, our transportation secretary recommends you take the bus.
We do have a lot of capacity in public transit, and that's something that, I hope becomes a means of choice. We need to make sure that there is less pressure on family budgets from transportation, which is often the second biggest budget item after housing itself. One of the tools that we have in our toolkit to do that is to make sure there's access to excellent public transportation.
Take the bus? Yeah, homeless schizophrenics have been doing it for generations. Why shouldn't you? You can't afford to drive. That's the transportation secretary. So maybe the first question would be, what are you going to do about gas prices, pal? The roads are falling apart. Maybe you could fix that. No! One of the tools in our toolkit is you can ride the bus with the crazy people, and you'll like it. But that's not their only plan to fight inflation. Their other plan? Blame others.
Now that we live in America where there's a lot more concentration in certain industries, look at the oil industry, look at meat industry, look at groceries generally, that what's happened is these companies have said, we'll pass along costs, but while we're at it and everyone's talking about rising costs, let's just add an extra big dollop of cost increases to expand our profits.
You just heard from someone who's a sitting United States senator whose total reservoir of knowledge about the world is smaller than the sink in your powder room. This is someone who knows literally nothing about how anything works. The meat industry? What would that be, Senator Warren? She has no idea what she's talking about. She has no interest in learning why the dollar is less valuable than it was 10 years ago. And she has no interest whatsoever in improving your life. So the question, once again, is how long can this continue? It's one thing to pretend that boys can compete in girls' sports, and that's totally natural. It's always the way it's been. That may be offensive to people. But when they can't afford to buy groceries, boy, you are really teetering on the edge of something awful. They should wake up soon.
Well, I think we can all see where our country is headed, and it's not a bad idea to be prepared. Well, that's all for our report tonight. Till next time, I'm Brad Polk for the Watchman News Network.